This video is a call to people who are running away from what God has called them to do. You have to ask yourself, am I being a Jonah? Am I running away from God? Am I running away from God's will for my life? We learned that in the book of Jonah, God basically called Jonah to fulfill a purpose in which he had to tell the people of Nineveh to turn away from their sin, but he ended up running away from God, going to Tarshish, and ended up boarding a ship in Joppa. So on that ship, it basically wasn't stable because the sea was moving in all sorts of ways, and this was because God was basically making that happen. Jonah was running away from what God had called him to do. Of you guys, the only reason certain things are not working is because God has not willed it and it has not planned for your life. God did not put it in His will for your life. Ship you may be pursuing, the ship to Tarshish could be your circular music career. It could be that unsuccessful football career, that unsuccessful basketball career, which God did not actually call you to do. But you keep on going because you think you know more than God. You think you're more prideful. You're prideful. You take pride in not going the way God has called you to do. It could mean denying that thing. It could mean not going through that certain career because God has a different plan for you. Eventually, the people on the ship ended up throwing off Jonah off the ship, boarded, and into the water. And in the sea, he ended up getting swallowed by a big fish. That big fish might be the end of your career. It might mean the end of an injury you got in football or basketball, in which you thought that this is probably the end of my purpose and the purpose that you've only called yourself to do, which God hasn't called you to do. Jonah ended up pursuing what God had called him to do. He ended up speaking to the people in Nineveh, telling them to turn away from the evil, and they ended up doing so. And from here, Jonah was a very angry man, so he ended up getting angry at God. And God asked him, why is he getting angry when he has fulfilled what God has told him to do? It goes back to pride. Jonah had pride. That's why he thought that he knew God more than what God could do. He thought he already knew what God was going to do. Jonah ended up saying that he knew that God would have mercy on the people of Nineveh, that he didn't have to go and preach to them. But God used him because God wanted the people to turn away from that sin. Even though he wasn't really willing to do it, God still called him because God has a bigger plan for our lives. I hope you guys are blessed through this message, and I hope it can impact you. And remember, you guys can also keep spreading the word, spreading the gospel. It is very important in these last days. We stay on that narrow path and we keep seeking God.